and an opportunity for us hopefully to put 2020 behind us. And I say that recognizing that so many people have had the most difficult period of time, and I realize it doesn't automatically change when you come to the end of one calendar year and then move to the other. But it certainly is an opportunity for us to maybe get a fresh start, and if not a fresh start, maybe a fresh perspective on what God is doing. I hope that you continue to join us. We're looking at and really exploring options about getting into more of our fuller programming, particularly as the economy more fully opens up. We get more access to potential vaccinations and hopefully get back to what I would call a regular schedule in church life, and really looking forward to what God's going to do in the 2021 year. If you're watching on a particular platform, let me encourage you to subscribe to that platform or like and share it. That allows us to get better coverage. Sunday, which would be this past Sunday now, I am I'm doing a standalone sermon. I did a standalone sermon this past Sunday that is leading into a series of messages focused on discipleship and the idea of what does it really look like for us to be followers, fully committed followers of Jesus in 2021. And oftentimes I think we are not so much, we look at the Bible as, well, that happened 2,000 years ago, and we look at our life today, and we don't necessarily connect those two things together as clearly as we ought to. So we're going to take a good look at that. And Sunday, I referenced the fact that one of the great obstacles to people being fully committed and devoted as followers of Jesus is that whether we like to use the terminology or not, we really struggle with this idea of idolatry. And I know that sounds like an antiquated idea. And let me just start in the Old Testament this morning for a few minutes. Just a couple simple thoughts, practical thoughts that I really want to challenge you about in your own life. In Isaiah 44, which I would encourage you to just go through and read the chapter and just kind of meditate on what's being said here. The Lord speaking, he says in verse 6, "Thus saith the Lord, the King of Israel and his Redeemer, the Lord of hosts, I am the first and I am the last, and beside me there is no God." So he is a God who's supreme, he's sovereign, he's great. And by the way, I don't think your life can ever be what it ought to be, what it can be, and I don't think the church will ever be what it should be unless it understands the supremacy, sovereignty, and greatness of God. God goes on to say, "And who, as I, shall call and shall declare it and set in order for me, since I appointed the ancient people, and the things that are coming and shall come, let them show unto them. Fear ye not, neither be afraid. Have not I told thee from that time, and have declared it? Ye are even my witnesses. Is there a God beside me? Yea, there is no God, I know not any. They that make a graven image are all of them vanity, and their delectable things shall not profit, and they are their own witnesses. They see not, nor know, that they may be ashamed. Who hath formed a god, or molten a graven image, that is profitable for nothing?" Now, he's getting into some very specific language here. I'm going to do this quickly because I don't have a lot of time to develop the entire thought. He's actually using a little bit of sarcasm here, and he's very directly belittling people that think so creature is going to make a god and he's going to worship the God that he creates with his own hands. That just doesn't hold up logically. He actually goes on to point out the foolishness of it when he talks about in verse number 14, "He that heweth him down cedars and taketh the cypress and oak, which he strengtheneth for himself among the trees of the forest. He planted an ash, and the rain doth nourish it. Then shall it be for a man to burn, for he will take thereof." And so he'll cut down wood, and he'll burn some of the wood to warm himself. "And yea, he kindleth it and baketh bread." So he'll take another part of the wood and make a fire so that he can bake his bread and feed himself, warm himself, feed himself. And then he'll take the third part of the wood, and he will maketh a god and worship it. He maketh it a graven image and fall down there too. So he burneth a part thereof with fire, and with part he eateth the flesh, he roasteth roast, and is satisfied, yea, he warmeth himself, and saith, Aha, I am warm, I have seen the fire. And then the residue thereof he maketh a god, even his graven image, and he falleth down unto it, and worship it, and prayeth unto it, and saith, Deliver me, for thou art my God. They have not known nor understood, for he has shut their eyes that they cannot see, and their hearts that they cannot understand. Now, if you will just take that and fast forward a moment and think about this. So, if you can make a god, and in ancient times, they symbolized the thing that they were worshiping by a graven image. So, for example, if you come into the New Testament time, you come to some of the ancient cities in Greece and Rome, and they had architecture. For example, the temple built to the goddess Diana, or things that were built that they worshipped, the goddess Epaphrodites, or the god Artemis, which is the god of war, god of power. And so these things were symbolic of things that they idealized. They idealized prosperity, wealth, family. They idealized power. They idealize fertility. They idealize all of these things, knowledge, and literally they assigned a god name to them and worshiped them. That's no different than you cutting down a tree and saying, "Hey, I'm going to use a little bit of this tree to make a fire so that I can feed myself, make a fire so I can warm myself, and then I'm going to make a god out of the third part of the wood and worship it." What that actually tells us this is the human heart has the capacity to produce idols. In fact, it is according to one writer, an idol-producing factory. Your heart is. And your heart is actually going after the very same things that are depicted in the idolatrous worship of the pagan gods. You're going to worship money and prosperity and health and power and success and all of the things that are in society. Our gods are cultural, they're personal, they're ideological, they're sociological. And they're things that we say, hey, if I have that, that is going to make me not just happy, but that is going to make me fulfilled. And I am going to worship that in the sense that I'm going to give my life to that so that I can get more of that, or I can live for that thing that I think is ultimately going to satisfy me. It is interesting. If you took America from its very founding and you took it even today, you'd have to agree that among history of civilization, America has been one of the most prosperous, technologically advanced, and affluent nations on the face of the earth. And I don't think you can argue that or against that from any perspective. And in the 1830s, Alexis de Tocqueville came in from France, and he studied what American life and culture was all about. And he said, one of his fascinating, interesting statements is that there's a strange melancholy that haunts the inhabitants of the land. So Tocqueville looked at America and he said, they have more affluence, prosperity, and this is the 1830s, than you can imagine. And yet there's a strange sadness, almost a despair, that haunts the inhabitants of the land. And his conclusion was that the incomplete joys of this world could never satisfy the deepest desires of the human heart. That's only a lesson in this. When John says, keep my little children, keep yourself from idols. Paul says, wherefore, my brethren, flee idolatry. What were they getting at? You can look to things, you can put your hope in things, you can have such a love and a desire and an aspiration for things that you actually begin to worship them. You begin to say you have to have them, and without them, you cannot be happy. And I'm saying to you the same thing that de Tocqueville said back in the 1830s, that the incomplete joys, and I'm saying prosperity and wealth and health and all the things that you value in this world, even the political power, all of those things are incomplete joys that can never satisfy the deepest longings of the human heart. So what you got to do is you got to turn to God. And you got to say, like Jesus taught us in the New Testament, the first and greatest commandment, that you love the Lord thy God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind, with all your strength. What you're doing is saying, God, you and you only are supreme in my life. And I don't look to you to get things from you so that I can be happy. I look to you completely. I look to you exclusively in meeting the deepest needs of the human heart. I hope that you start 2021 with that thought in your heart and mind. Look at the things that you're living for and ask yourself, am I being irrational? Am I being illogical? Am I trying to take something that is really nothing more than what God has given me? Am I making a God of it to try to get something that's going to satisfy a need that I have in my heart and life? And let's in 2021, let's love God with all our heart, soul, mind, body, and strength. God bless you.